Hey everyone, welcome back to Social Security Post. If you're on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, stay right here because this one matters. President Trump just dropped a massive claim in his new Fox News interview. He said, "We're going to do over $17 trillion in new investments in just 8 months, and we could reach $20 trillion by the end of the year. And a big part of that is from tariffs." That's huge. And instantly, people started asking, could this mean new stimulus checks? Maybe even $2,000 payments for everyone? So today, we're going to break this all down. What Trump really meant, how tariffs fit in, what the numbers show, and whether $2,000 checks could actually happen. Before we start, please tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update here on Social Security Post. Let's start with what he actually said. During his Fox News interview, Trump claimed that no country on earth has ever seen this level of investment. He said the Biden administration only reached under $1 trillion in 4 years, but his team could see 17 to 20 trillion in less than 1. Now that's an eye-popping number, but what's really behind it? When you dig into the data, you find that most of these investments are a mix of private sector pledges, planned projects, and previously announced developments, not all finalized or funded yet. Fact-checking groups like Reuters, CBS News, and factcheck.org reviewed the claim. They found that the White House website counts many proposals and even projects started under the last administration. So yes, it's a bold figure, but it's more about announcements than cash in hand. Keep that in mind, because when you're hearing talk about trillions of dollars, the key question is always, how much of that money is real and available to spend? Now, Trump linked those trillions directly to tariffs. So let's break that down. A tariff is basically a tax on imported goods, things like electronics, cars, and steel. Companies pay it when bringing goods into the country, and that money goes straight into the U.S. Treasury. And here's where the numbers get interesting. As of October 2025, the average U.S. tariff rate has climbed to about 18%, the highest since the 1930s. According to data from USA Facts and the Peterson Institute, the U.S. government has already collected around $165 billion in customs duties this fiscal year, more than double last year's total. By July 2025 alone, tariff revenue was already over $122 billion, representing roughly 2 to 3% of all federal income. That might sound small, but it's still a historic jump, and it's what Trump means when he says tariffs are a big part of those investments. So, if we have this new stream of cash coming in, the next logical question is, could some of that money be turned into checks for the American people? All right, let's crunch some numbers. Simple and clear. If the government sent $2,000 to every American, all 335 million of us, that would cost about $670 billion. If the checks only went to adults, around 260 million people, that drops to roughly $520 billion. Now, what if they just repeated something like the 2020 stimulus and gave everyone $600? That would cost about $201 billion. And if they targeted Social Security, SSI, and SSDI recipients only, about 67 million people, that would be $134 billion. Here's the comparison. Tariffs so far this year, around $165 billion. Cost for $2,000 to seniors only, $134 billion. That means, in theory, there's enough new money from tariffs to fund a targeted payment for Social Security recipients, but not enough to cover a universal $2,000 check for everyone. So the math works only if the payment is smaller or limited to certain groups. Now let's talk reality. Even if the Treasury is collecting record-high tariffs, that doesn't mean the president can just send out checks. Here's why. Every single federal payment must be approved by Congress. Tariff money goes into the Treasury's general fund, and using it for direct payments requires an actual law. Senator Josh Hawley has proposed something like this, a Tariff Rebate Act, which would give rebate checks funded by tariffs. But as of now, no such bill has passed. There's also a potential court case hanging over this whole plan. Trump has used powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, to set tariffs. If the Supreme Court limits that authority, the flow of tariff revenue could shrink fast. So, to summarize, the money exists, but legally, it can't move without congressional approval. Now here's where it gets interesting. Even with all those limits, there is a path. Not guaranteed, but possible. One path would be to target Social Security recipients. A $2,000 payment to 67 million beneficiaries would cost around $134 billion, which is about what tariffs bring in this year. That could be sold as a tariff rebate for retirees, politically popular and financially doable. Another option would be a scaled-down universal check, maybe $600 or $1,000 to everyone. That would run between $200 and $335 billion, still within striking distance if tariff revenues keep climbing. And finally, there's the hybrid option, half tariff funds, half general budget. That's how the original pandemic stimulus was financed, borrowing plus redirected funds. So yes, while $2,000 for everyone would require new spending approval, $600 to $1,000 or a senior-focused $2,000 bonus is mathematically realistic if political momentum builds. But there are risks, big ones. If the Supreme Court curbs tariff powers, revenue drops. If global trade slows or other countries retaliate, import volume falls, and the government collects less. And even though the tariffs raise revenue, they also raise prices. Goldman Sachs analysts estimate that American consumers are already absorbing about 55% of the total tariff costs. So any stimulus check might simply be giving people back money they already lost to higher prices at the store. And don't forget the federal deficit, still around $1.7 trillion this year. That means any stimulus check has to balance against mounting debt concerns. Now let's talk directly to my Social Security viewers. If any stimulus plan moves forward, you are likely to be at the front of the line. Why? Because seniors and disabled Americans are the easiest group to verify and pay. The SSA already has your information, and a direct deposit system is in place. A one-time $2,000 tariff rebate to Social Security recipients could actually be rolled out quickly. But you should also watch the fine print. If the check is counted as income, SSI recipients could see temporary benefit adjustments unless Congress marks it as non-countable, like they did with earlier stimulus checks. So keep your expectations realistic, stay alert for official SSA guidance, and don't fall for online rumors promising automatic payments before a law is passed. Here's how to know whether this is gaining traction. First, watch the Treasury's monthly statement. That's where tariff revenue totals appear each month. If you see numbers heading toward $300 billion by year-end, momentum builds. Second, keep an eye on Congress. If any bill mentions tariff rebates, investment bonuses, or direct payments funded by tariffs, that's your signal to pay attention. Third, follow the Supreme Court docket, because if they limit tariff powers, this entire funding source changes overnight. And finally, listen for official comments from the Treasury Secretary. The last statement projected tariff receipts could hit $300 billion by December. That's roughly enough to fund a $900 check for every American or $2,000 for all seniors. If those numbers hold and a bill gets traction, that's when speculation turns into a real possibility. So let's recap everything in plain English. Trump's $17 to $20 trillion investment claim sounds incredible, but most of it is projections and announcements, not cash in hand. Tariffs are up sharply, around $165 billion so far, and that's real money. A universal $2,000 check would cost $670 billion, so it's out of reach unless Congress borrows or cuts elsewhere. But a targeted $2,000 payment for Social Security SSI or SSDI recipients, around $134 billion total, does fit the revenue picture. The biggest hurdles are legal and political. Congress must pass a bill, and the courts must keep tariff authority intact. So while a nationwide $2,000 check is unlikely right now, a smaller or targeted version remains possible if conditions line up. Thanks for staying with me through the full breakdown. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this video so more people understand what's really going on. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think the next stimulus should go to everyone, or should it go to seniors and disabled Americans first? Drop your answer below. I read every comment and might feature yours in the next video. Until then, this is Social Security Post, helping you stay informed, empowered, and always one step ahead.